Where does Tommy Lloyd and Arizona basketball stand with two of the best prospects in the country? And they both come from a region that Arizona fans need to know a lot about.
You are Locked On Wildcats, your daily podcast on the Arizona Wildcats. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Thanks for keeping it Locked On Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. Locked On, your team every day. This show today is presented to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can get $200 in bonus bets when your first $5 bet wins. Download the app or head to FanDuel.com to get started. Bet with FanDuel, official sports partner of the NBA. All right, now, I think a lot of people that were worried about what was going on with Tommy Lloyd and recruiting, obviously, they don't have to worry nearly as much anymore. And a big reason why is because Tommy Lloyd just brought in a top 5 class in the entire country. That is something that we need to talk about first, and then we're going to get to that. How did he do that? Well, guess what? He's got really, really good contacts in Southern California. That goes without saying. And I think he's shown that. Now, listen, we've talked about it a million times. He prioritized Kylan Boswell. He got Kylan Boswell. Now, listen, Boswell turned out not to be good. He had his head in the clouds, whatever. But he still got him. Then Carter Bryant. That was the next one that he wanted. Carter's off to the NBA, but at the same time, he was a 5-star kid. That's who Arizona prioritized. And then after that, you got Braden Burries. So those are 3 5-star kids that you got out of Southern California. And, obviously the Boswell situation's totally different. I get that. But Carter's going to have really good things to say about Arizona. And not only is he going to have really good things to say about Arizona, he's going to he's going to speak. I think he's going to speak very highly of them. And even though he averaged 6 and 4, he was still a lottery pick. So there is that. Braden Burries is the next one up. Braden Burries is going to be handed the keys. He's going to be asked to score. He's going to be asked to be one of the maybe the best player on the team. And I don't know that there's any reason why he can't. And so like I said, there is obviously that. Now, so let's now talk a little bit about who some of the players are in Southern California that you really need to know if you're Arizona. The first one is Christian Collins. Christian Collins is one of the 3 or 4 best players in the entire country. 6'8", power forward, obviously out of California, can do basically everything. He's the He's the epitome of a one and done. You watch him, you can tell that he is a. You watch him, you can tell that he's a pro. Moves like a pro, looks like a pro, plays like a pro, all of that. So again, he'll be a one and done type for sure. He's athletic, he can move around. He's just good. Now, listen, this is also kind of where recruiting is a little bit different in that both of these guys are, let's see, I would say basically, how do I put this? This guy he's not going to be as good as Koa Pete probably off the bat because Koa Pete is physically developed. Koa Pete is physically he's a monster. Now listen, Koa Pete probably doesn't have that overall upside that Christian Collins does, but Koa Pete, you watch him and you're like, man, all right, that's what it's supposed to look like. And like I said, so Koa Pete, obviously something that's a little bit different in that regard. Collins is going to be more like a Cam Williams type. We talked about Cam Williams a bunch in that he'll be a good college player, but his best attributes will probably be in the NBA, and that's the same thing with Christian Collins. Although I think you could maybe argue that Christian Collins is maybe a little bit further around or a little bit further than Cam Williams, but it's kind of the same. It's kind of the same theory though with both guys. So when it comes to recruiting, the thing that's really good about it from an Arizona perspective is you don't have to worry about UCLA anymore. That is a very, very nice thing that you don't have to worry about. Because again, kids don't want to go play for Cronin, mainly because he's a turd. I mean, would you want to send your kid to play for Mick Cronin? Well, you're a smart person, so most likely not. So there is that power vacuum that is open. So a lot of these kids, they're not even considering UCLA. So that's obviously a very, very good thing for the University of Arizona. If you can get all of that out of the way, then you're going to take that one every single day of the week. Okay, now. Collins, Arizona's going to be in that till the end. Tommy Lloyd gets to coach these guys. So, if you were Tommy Lloyd gets to be able to coach these guys. So if you're from that perspective, you're going to be able to show people a little bit more. It's kind of like it was with Braden Burries. Braden Burries knows that that's how Tommy Lloyd coaches. That's what he does, and that is just a really, really good thing for any. It's like with Sean Miller. A lot of these schools or a lot of these players, they get to play for coaches that that they haven't seen before, whatever the case may be, and that is always going to be a really, really good thing for the U of A. Now, so Christian Collins, though, he is right at the top of the priority list. And then you've got another one as well, and that would be Tahj Ariza. Now, both these guys are with Clutch. Clutch is an interesting factor here in all of this because with Clutch, that with Clutch that, like I said, Bryce James is with Clutch. That is a good thing. You want guys that are with Clutch. You want guys that are, how do I put this? Like I said, you want guys that are basically in depth with Arizona, in depth with what they want to do. Tahj Ariza is another one. Tahj Ariza actually, from my understanding, was the one that reached out to Arizona and said that he would like to be recruited by the Wildcats. So that's a pretty cool little feather in cap when you got a top 5, top 10 player in the country that is basically saying, "Hey guys, I'm over here. You want to recruit me?" Ariza is another one that is a top 10 player. He's a 6'7" shooting guard, monster, really good player. And also somebody too where you're like, your best attributes will probably be shown off in the NBA, but you still take a top 10 player like that. Again, Arizona is going to have a lot of spots to offer. And when I say a lot of spots to offer, I mean a lot of spots to offer because you're going to be losing so many guys. Like we talked about, you're losing Jaden Bradley. You're going to be losing Braden Burries. You're going to be losing Tobe Awaka. You're likely losing Koa Pete and Braden Burries. You could be losing Crevis. You lose ADO. There's going to be a lot of different spots that are going to be available for Arizona, or for playing time. And I think like I said, with Arizona, that's something that will be appetizing for a lot of players. They're probably going to have some portal guys in there as well, obviously. But Ariza's another one. Ariza's one of those guys that if he wants to commit to the U of A, he commits to the U of A, and you will absolutely take him. So there is that. But both those guys, though, like I said, I think Arizona has a better chance with Christian Collins because, like I said, Christian Collins and Cam Williams to me are the epitome of one that you take the first one that commits. Whoever commits first, you're going to take that player. And yes, you would love to have both. You would absolutely love to have both. But this is probably a situation where you're going to have to just you probably will only get one. Politics and play, all of that stuff. You get it. But that's kind of where it's at with when it comes to that. Now, we will see exactly where how Arizona plays out with this one, but I think the thing that is exciting about all of this, though, is that you also have a recruiting blueprint in place right now, and Tommy Lloyd's done that. Tommy Lloyd has worked hard for that, And again, I know that he's not a 5-star kid, but we've talked about it with Bryce James. With Bryce James, he's also the kind of player that. If it's going to take him some time likely, but he can get there. And if he gets there, it's going to be another thing that's going to be a really good feather in the cap because guess what? It's awesome if LeBron James' kid has a good time at the University of Arizona. That is a priority. That is something that absolutely needs to happen. And again, they are kind of in that that spot too as well, where you know that. Like I said, the James family, they're well aware of where Bryce is in his developmental process. I mean, it's going to take Bryce a little bit of time, and I don't think that anybody is going to be surprised, that it will take him a little bit of time. But Bryce is the man, though, and like I said, he's going to be 6'7" when he's done. He can shoot a little bit as well. There's just like I said, there's a lot to like about Bryce James and what he can bring to the table. And but again, the Southern California scene, that really matters. It's basically Southern California and Phoenix when it comes down to that. Now, we need to speak about another Southern California kid that's been a little mysterious. But first, FanDuel, my friends, FanDuel. Here's the deal. The NBA playoffs are in full swing, and every night delivers highlight-worthy performances, major momentum shifts, and can't-miss moments. Whether it's a game-winning shot or a breakout player, there's never been a better time to get in on the action. FanDuel makes it easy to stay in the game before tip-off and live with player props, performance trends, and basically anything you want, and same-game parlays. Fans have more ways than ever to play smart and win big. Now, here's the cool thing. Which players are showing up in the biggest moments? Think about it this way. You're watching the NBA playoffs, and you're like, you know what? I think I got a pretty good feel for how this game's going, or I know a lot more about my team than most people do. You can bet live during the game, and you can get in on that, and you can maybe say, you know what? I got a little bit better idea than what's going on. Watch this. And you could and here's also, too, you could turn $200, or you could turn $5 if that bet hits into $200 if you're a new customer. And again, which players are showing up in the biggest moments? You're going to be able to bet on that. You got player props, all kinds of different things. So, new to FanDuel, it's the perfect time to sign up. Head to FanDuel.com and place your first $5 bet. If it wins, you'll get $200 in bonus bets. Make every moment a move with FanDuel, official sports betting partner of the NBA. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, let's talk about somebody that's been a little bit mysterious of late, and that is Carter Bryant. Now, a lot of people are like, well, Carter didn't announce anything. He's not doing this. He's not doing that. Listen, I'm under the impression that Carter Bryant is staying in the NBA draft because guess what? He already said he was. So I don't get this whole thing where people are like, well, Carter's got to announce this and that. He's going to say something thanking the U of A fan base. Whatever the case may be, he's going to be thanking the U of A fan base. I don't care about any of that stuff. That means really next to nothing to me. I think with Carter, the other thing is, well, where are you like I said, I have no problem with really how this has gone down. It's unfortunate that Arizona couldn't get another player. I get all of that. But at the same time, Carter's also going to be a recruiting tool for a long time for Arizona. He is going to be a big-time recruiting tool because, again, I don't know that Arizona gets Braden Burries if it doesn't have Carter Bryant, and Carter Bryant basically saying, hey, man, like this is the place to go. Now, listen, Arizona, I think Tommy Lloyd probably didn't use Carter as well as he probably could have. Trey Townsend was absolutely terrible. I mean, we can sit here and say it. I'm sure he's a nice kid, but Trey was awful. So there's obviously that, and don't mean to beat up on the kid. It just kind of is what it is. But Trey was not a good basketball player, and Carter probably should have played more. Now he started playing more towards the end of the season, but like the UCLA game early on where he gets 9 minutes. What are we doing here? That wasn't it. But either way, Carter's a good kid, comes from a good family, and he's going to be somebody that is going to speak very highly of the University of Arizona. And I think that's something that is going to be a very good tool. Like I said, Braden Burries, he spoke obviously very highly of Braden Burries. And again, here's the thing with Carter as well, that that he is very, very well thought of in the Southern California scene. He is like I said, he's a great kid. He comes from he's been known on the circuit for quite a while. He was Arizona's priority recruit, and like I said, Arizona got him. So there's that. But he's also, like I said, he's also shot up the draft boards. He's probably going to go in the top 10 to 12. We're going to revisit that in a second, but I don't know. Sometimes things are just unfortunate. I just don't know exactly how things are going to play out. But all right. So with Carter, though, here's where I'm at with Carter in the NBA. I think Carter has an easy skill set to project. Obviously, the 3 and D, I totally get all of that. I do think Carter, like I said, and I've said a million times, Carter's also very young. Carter's also the guy that it's probably, when he goes out on the road with those guys, he's not going to play for a while. And, when they're all going out or going to the club, Carter's not going to be able to go. And again, that's not necessarily the worst thing at all. You hear stories about Kobe Bryant where people are like Allen Iverson's like, man, let's go to the club. And Kobe is like, no, I'm going to the gym. I mean, that's some pretty cool stuff right there. But Carter is Carter's kind of in that same boat though. He's a ways off from being able to contribute. If you draft Carter, I think you have to know that you're going to have to be able to stand pat for 2 to 3 years where he can't really, like I said, where he's not really, how do I put this? He's, like I said, it's just going to take him a little bit of time. I get the decision. Like I said, NIL kind of changes everything. And I think with NIL, you look at it and you're kind of like, all right, well, could have come back for $1.5 million, really kind of corrected some of that stuff. But it is what it is. Wish him nothing but the best. Him and his pops, great dudes. And like I said, it's going to be he'll be a fun Wildcat to follow for sure. You got a lot of guys in the NBA right now doing their thing, from Mathurin to McConnell to it'll be awesome to see Carter back in that mix right there. So that's there's obviously that. I would have, like I said, I'm not really big on, that I don't need some specific announcement or I don't need anything like that. I think a lot of people are just kind of like, all right, well, we'll just see what happens when it happens. That's kind of where I'm at with, that's just kind of where I'm at with that. Now let's talk a little bit then about just, what that would mean for Tommy Lloyd. It's another NBA pick. Not only is it another NBA pick, it's an easy recruiting tool for him. He can sit here and say that, man, this is another guy that we put into the league. He only averaged 6 and 4, but guess what? It was good. So on that note, all right, now we're going to switch over, and again, we got to start talking a little bit of Arizona football as well because Seth Doege has spoken. Thanks for keeping it locked on Wildcats and making this your first listen of the day. I am your host, Mike Luke. All right, now, Seth Doege has spoken, and listen, I think there's expectations for Arizona, this Arizona offense to be much better this year. Now, listen, generally you don't lose guys like T-Mac. You generally don't lose guys like Big Jonas Savanea, and you get better. I get all that. That's generally not in the cards, but we're kind of at the stage too with Arizona where that's kind of what you are. That's kind of where you're at. Okay, so now the first thing that we need to look at is with Seth Doege is with Noah Fifita. You've obviously got to get his Noah Fifita. You've got to get his feet right, obviously, and that was something that he's talked about, and that was something that we've talked about before. He has got to be able to get his feet right because last year the feet were awful and they just weren't. Like I said, he basically wasn't being coached, and that was it. That was obviously a problem. So that's the first thing. You're also going to probably have to get the ball out quickly. The offensive line in front of him, not great. I don't know that I'm breaking any news right there, but the offensive line is not great. It also is something too when it's like. You're kind of like, well, all right. So there's that. Then the wide receivers, I think, are going to be more than good enough. I'm very bullish on the wide receiver. and I'm very bullish on the wide receiver unit. I think in a weird way, it's actually going to be better than last year. I think that, but guys like Hudson, guys like Wysong, et cetera, are going to be really, really good. So then there's that. And then, a Javin Watley, et cetera. Getting Kean back is huge, though. Getting Kean back is a huge thing. The big thing with Kean has just got to stay healthy. If Kean stays healthy, Kean is an NFL prospect, and I think Daggy knows that, and I think that's a big reason why. Why Kean is back is that he knows that the people that were here before that just didn't really know what they were doing, they're gone. So it makes a lot of sense to come back, and that's exactly what he has done. But then, like I said, the O-line, that's going to be the question, though. And again, I know the age-old thing. I know the age-old thing where you're like, all right, well, the O-line, yeah, we're gonna find out. I was not at all a fan of Josh Oglesby last year. I wasn't at all impressed by him, but a lot of people that know a lot more than me, like John Fina, Glenn Parker, guys like that, they vouch for him. They said that this is the right guy. So, like I said, we shall see. We shall see. But this is basically kind of that's basically kind of where it's at this stage. All right, so. Now the other thing too is where is it then when it comes to the Arizona offense, or like the Arizona offensive line? Can a Ty Buchanan, can a Tristan Bounds, can those guys really hold up at the tackle position? Now, I think you have an idea with somebody like Big Rhino. If Big Rhino's healthy, Big Rhino's going to be good. Big Rhino's going to be in a good situation for the Wildcats because again, he's a good player. Watching him. The problem with Big Rhino is he's just got to stay healthy. But if he stays healthy, I think he's going to be a pretty darn good player. And not only is he going to be a good player, he's also going to be somebody that I think that you can really rely on in the grand scheme of things. So there's obviously that. But also the other thing too that you need to look at when it comes to that is you also need to look at and say, okay, that interior offensive line. Chuba's going to be big here. Now again, we've talked a lot about Chuba before on the show, but Chuba is somebody that is a how do I put this? He's a guy who you watch him and you're like, okay, can he get to that next level? Can he, because that was what he was in the past. He was a guard, he was quick, and he could do a lot of different things. But he also was somebody that, like I said, he wasn't good in that role. So maybe in that guard position, he can be better. I think DeCambra, that's one that you're hoping as well can be a little bit better, than what Arizona had. But we got to be honest here. You're losing Big Jonah. You're losing Wendell Moy. You're losing, Josh Baker. Generally, you don't get better losing guys like that. But I think the question also is getting Daggy in there. Is Daggy's going to offset some of those personnel losses, I think, because Daggy just has a much better idea of what's going on. So we're going to find out. Like I said, we got football coming up, so we're going to talk a little bit more about that as well. Okay, now also you got Arizona baseball coming up in here as well. Chip Hale, baby. Chip Hale, like I said, this is I have a good feeling about this, that Arizona is going to come out of this regional. I think Arizona is playing really, really good ball right now, and again, got to win 3. Just got to win 3, and I don't see any reason why Arizona can't do that. The bats are hitting, and the pitching is going really well as well. And like I said, I think it's a group of players as well that are that are very much feeling themselves. I think there's a confidence level, but you also got to go out and you got to be able to show it on the field as well. And that's something, like I said, that we've talked about, that you've got to be able to see. And in the past, like I said, Arizona has not shown that. Arizona has not shown the they've gotten there and they have just not been good enough. And that's something that you've got to factor in. But wanted to talk a ton about the SoCal recruiting priorities in this game and what the SoCal recruiting priorities, what exactly, where exactly this comes from, and Christian Collins, Tahj Ariza, where they are, and where Arizona is with them. Because again, Arizona would really like to be able to, I think, do a nice job in Southern California, and I don't think that there's any reason why that can't really be the case. So that's going to be a fun thing. Tommy Lloyd has certainly shown that he can do that, and we're going to see exactly what that means from there. But as always, very much appreciate you all making Locked On Wildcats your first listen of the day. Again, I'm your host, Mike Luke. Locked On, your team every day. Bear down, back the A. And like I said, Arizona right now, killing it on the recruiting trail. And we got Arizona baseball coming up tomorrow. You have a absolutely great rest of your Thursday.